I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, will you take a roll, please?
I will. Member Thompson?
Here.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Here.
Member Looney? Here. Member Rothenberger?
Here.
Chair Stevens?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Moving right along, we'll go to item number 1, a presentation, the beach activity report.
Okay, again, I'm taking over for Camden. Brian Peckins, Assistant Director of Public Services. I'm happy to be here and willing to support in any way that I can. Just a few notes. Weddings, 9 in July, 8 in August, and 13 in September. A series of public meetings. I'm not going to read all of those. Special events. In July, there was a couple of volleyball tournaments and a concert. In August, another concert and another volleyball tournament. September, a volleyball tournament, a concert, a surfing event, and a trade winds event. On Keep Pinellas Beautiful cleanup front, 7 events, 112 volunteers, 236 volunteer hours, and 211 pounds of trash removed from the beach. The Pinellas County Sheriff violations. In July, 1 citation, 96 verbal warnings. In August, 3 citations, 75 verbal warnings. And in September, no citations, but 76 verbal warnings. So that's a brief summary of the beach activities.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and comments. First off, thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Weddings, very useful. Good to know the kind of revenue that's coming in, the kind of activity that's coming in. Public meetings, I don't know that I don't understand the significance of these meetings versus other public meetings. I don't think we need to, I mean, this is on our
Yeah.
The schedule of meetings is on the website, so a history of meetings, unless you were attending or something, is that the significance?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have no
I think
issue
for
with that.
I think for public meetings, that's not really as important. Special events, here we are mid-November, and these special events end in September. I'd be much more interested to know the events that are going on, for instance, of the quarter we're in, not just a look back,
Yeah.
but also a little bit of a look forward, especially looking forward, because that's where we might have something to say.
Yeah, good points.
And then Keep Pinellas Beautiful, terrific. Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, in the past, I don't know if it's this document or a different document, we normally see not just the number of verbal warnings to citations, but it's a grid that shows the type of activity it was. Sometimes it would be a little confusing because they'd include things that didn't happen on the beach. Nice to know. But the main focus being the type of violation. Was it dogs? Do we have a dog problem? Do we have a littering problem? You know, what other things are going on?
Yeah, good comments, and we can try to incorporate that for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? So I had 2 comments. One he picked up is we usually get the details of the Pinellas report. And then in that, could you ask them if there was any trespass on the beach, that those are included in that report?
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Okay.
Like over a dune.
Yeah. Actually, well, trespass, there was something else where a private property owner was saying, hey, you're on my property, get off. That's what I meant by trespass. A dune violation of someone in the
That'd be nice to know.
Listen too.
Yeah.
That, I remember seeing that at least once in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah, me too.
They usually do that as a separate,
Cool.
line.
Good call.
Okay. All right. We'll move forward to approval of the agenda. Is there any comments or additions for the agenda?
I have one. I read in the mayor's newsletter, or the city's newsletter, that there was a meeting on November 13th, about one of the issues on the beach with signage being placed out there and the beach being called private. I'd like to either about that issue in particular, or at least now that the city attorney has more update on what might have been, because this meeting was supposedly to get an idea of what's on the mind of the property owner. I think it would be helpful for us to understand the concerns that came out of that meeting or other ways before we even discuss our ordinance right after that. So my suggestion is to insert before our review of the two ordinances to understand a little more about what the private property owners are after, or what we think that their rights are or not are, so that we can make sure we're including the appropriate things in our ordinance.
City Attorney, are you,
We can do that. We can make it number C, or letter C, I guess, for between B and C. We can move it to between
Yep.
for B and C. I don't know that we have to add anything. I can just talk about it after the meeting dates and before the ordinance.
okay,
Thank you.
any other items for the agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the modified agenda?
Move to approve the modified agenda.
I second it.
Roll call?
Yes.
Member Looney?
Yes.
Member Rothenberger?
Yes.
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. We'll go to the first action item is the approval of the minutes of our last three meetings, August 20th, September 16th, and October 23rd. Any comments?
You want
One at a time?
audience comment?
Oh, I cut right ahead, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Any general audience comments? Please state your name for the record. And
My name's Christopher Hollins, and I live down in Passick Grove, on the Castle Hotel.
welcome.
Oh, no.
Hi. Good to see you.
And I normally get up and talk about history stuff and about private property rights. But I think you guys are going to run into some of that coming up here pretty soon, and good luck with that, because, I mean, after 100 years or so. But that'll bring me to some of the wisdom of Warren Webster. You can't get into any of this stuff of your dunes without the generosity and the wisdom of him transferring a private ownership deed to the town of Passick Grove back in the day, which was the law and the statutory law. And I think that those issues of those days will come before you, okay? Or somebody, legally. Good luck with that. I'm here to help. I've got a lot of history and knowledge, which I was going to come and talk about some technical stuff, but about shaping the dunes and about a potential weir out here. But the property rights is going to come forward. And the second issue, it came across my computer this morning. In a federal courts of appeal up in the Panhandle, okay, and you guys are familiar with all the stuff that goes up in Walton County and blah, 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 blah. They have decided that closing the beach for 3 months in a federal appeals court was a taking. And there's some technicalities of who owned the beach and what parts of the beach and their condo association. But it just seems to me like it may have been yesterday or recently. And then also we'll start to shape some stuff coming forward. And I'd like to thank you for your work and your time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I apologize for missing that. I was going right to action items. If everyone's okay, we'll move to action items. Approval of the minutes of August 20th, September 16th, and October 23rd, 2025. Any comments on any of those?
I have a comment on August 20th.
Okay,
On page 12 of 99, there was mention of using customary use as a shield. And I found it confusing, so I watched the video again and I read the transcript. And actually, I would suggest that it should say, use the shield for a trespass case. Because it was unclear who was trying to use the shield as a shield. You know, sometimes it's a shield. The whole point was this, sometimes you have a shield and sometimes it's a sword. And where the attorney mentioned that it was, could be a shield, he also had the context, shield in a trespass case. Because there's other times when it would be a sword or a shield for the other side. So this is a scenario. I would just add the words in a trespass case after the word shield. To clarify. That's fine.
okay. Any other comments from members? I'd like to say, as I read through them, compliment the clerk. There was a lot of content in those 3 meetings, and you guys did a fantastic job in summarizing those. They were well done. Can I have a motion to approve the modified minute of August, as well as the September and October meeting?
I move to do them one at a time, and I
Okay.
move to discuss August 20th first.
Oh, you had
Okay.
comments on all 3?
Well, no, because I can't vote on the other 2. I have to abstain, I wasn't even here.
No, you can vote.
You can vote.
have to vote.
Okay.
You have to vote. We've had this, we've done
I
this
missed that.
before. I know.
I fell into that trap early on.
Yes, we've,
You can only abstain if something inures to your special private gain or loss, if it has a monetary impact on you. But the Florida statutes require you, because you're on a board or elected or an advisory board, that you have to vote on every other item.
But I
There's no abstaining, even though if you're not there, so.
didn't
You
read,
could vote last and see if everyone else has any questions. I think you made a motion about
I
one.
watched the videos and read the transcripts. I actually didn't read the minutes of those other 2. That wasn't germane to what I was doing, so, okay. All right, so I'm not prepared to vote on those.
Didn't get a chance, it doesn't matter, you gotta vote yes or no, or skin it real quick, or unfortunately, you have to vote one way or the other. You can vote no, that's okay.
Okay, all right, that's fine then. Thank you.
Sometimes an explanation of why you're voting no could include, wasn't there, I didn't see this, didn't have time.
Okay, thank you.
why don't we do this? I'm going to amend my request. Can we have a motion to approve the modified August 20th, 2025 meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes of the August 2025 meeting
As modified.
as modified. Thank you.
I second that.
Roll call.
Member Looney,
Yes.
Member Rothenberger,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman,
Yes.
Chair Stevens.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now I'm going to group the other 2 together, and that gives you however you would like to handle it. Can I have a motion to approve the September 16th and October 23rd of 2025 meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve the September 16th and the October 23rd meeting minutes.
Do I have a
Second.
Roll call.
Member Rothenberger,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman.
No, because I relied on the video and transcript rather than reading that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Looney,
Yes.
Chair Stevens.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is the review and approval of the 2026 meeting dates.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody have a comment?
The February date is, I didn't print it, was it the 8th?
It's the 18th, and just to as I did this year, I asked, or I did last year, I asked us to move it later one week to February 20. I'm going to respectfully request that we move it from February 18th to February 25th, if that works for everyone.
Yes, I think that works, yeah.
Yeah, 18th is Ash Wednesday also.
Yeah.
Is that everyone?
February
25th.
25th, thank you.
25th.
Do we need a motion and a,
Did they check about availability?
Yes, we do need a motion and a second.
can I have a motion to approve the modified Beach Stewardship Committee notice of meetings?
I'll make a motion to approve the modified Beach Stewardship Committee meeting schedule.
Second.
Roll call?
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Yes.
Member Looney?
Yes.
Member Rothenberger?
Yes.
Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. So, as we discussed, we're going to do the discussion of the matter of beach signs posted on the beach. City Attorney?
As you may have seen, there are some signs at the undertow. There's 3 signs on the north end of the property and 3 signs on the south side of the property located in Sandy Beach. One of the signs, on occasion, is underwater within the wet sand and sometimes underwater. We have held meetings with the owner and the owner's attorney and the sheriff's department. Most recently, we had a meeting with this group, including I think it was 5 or 6 deputy sheriffs who patrol this part of the beach. I think the desire for the signs by this particular property owner arose, and granted, be aware these are the only such signs that have been placed in St. Pete Beach along the beach, at least in my term here. The owner and his wife called the sheriffs to trespass someone who was on their property on the beach side that had become unruly. And the sheriffs came out. There's a little bit of dispute about what happened. They were not trespassed, but I believe they were asked to leave, and I believe they did leave. But that led to the undertow calling their attorneys saying that they need to post their property in order to enforce trespass. There's a Florida statute about trespass and posting properties that are large properties. Say, you might see them when you go out driving across the state, and you see these big properties where people hunt. It says no hunting, no fishing, no trespassing. The owner was under the impression that the sheriff would only trespass someone if signs were posted at all 4 corners of the property. The sheriff said that their current policy is not to require signs at all 4 corners of the property in order to trespass someone. That they would make a judgment call. In this particular area of the beach, the sheriff asserted that there were not that many public beachgoers. Most of the beachgoers were from adjoining properties. The property owner asserted that there is a beach access point that people get dropped off at and then walk to the beach and spread out. I think the main concern from the property owner were people who would come and set up tents, beach tents with the 4 posts and then the overhang awning, and set up camp there on their private property with more than just walking, more than just sitting on the beach or sitting on a towel, but establishing picnic under umbrellas, under tents, that kind of thing. After prolonged discussions, the sheriff said that they did not have to have a sign in the corner at the mean high water line, that they could triangulate down the property to see where the approximate property lines were, and that if it was a close call, they wouldn't trespass someone, but if it appeared that they were in the middle, they could trespass someone, and that there is a way to register your property with the sheriff's department to have the sheriffs trespass people, to give owner authorization for that. The sheriffs did ask that they call if someone is unruly or they desire to trespass someone, to call the sheriff, and they would go out there and promise to be timely in their response, and that they would first ask people if they're clearly in the private property area of dry sand further up by the dunes, to move north or south back to where their units were, or to the public beach if they were from the public. It seemed, well, we also inquired as to what the property owners' parameters were, and property owners seemed clear that he was not opposed to people walking the beach, walking up and down, not up and down, I guess I should say, parallel to the mean high water line, and walking in what would traditionally be the customary use doctrine area where people have always walked. It seemed he was not opposed to people sitting down on the beach, bathing or sunbathing in the area that's closer to the water, but still possibly in dry sand, as long as they were not setting up camp or bringing coolers. The owner was very concerned that he had found people were bringing coolers to the beach with alcohol in the cooler, and he did not want to endanger his alcohol license. There was some discussion about whether the Undertow where the Undertow's area was for cabana alcohol sales, if they had such authority or not, or permits. And there was some discussion about some ordinances that apparently happened after COVID, is what the owner alleged. I haven't had a chance to talk to Brandon about the status of their actual permits. But they were concerned about people bringing alcohol illegally onto their property. People who become unruly. Also, again, people setting up camp with more than just walking the beach and sitting on a towel, or doing those type of activities, but actually setting up tents and things like I mentioned. So I guess the upshot of it is we came to a potential, at least temporary solution, asking the owners to remove the 2 signs that were in the mean high water line area, with the idea that the sheriff said that they could look at the other 2 signs and visually triangulate the rest of the line. They didn't need to have a sign down at the water. The concern is we didn't want signs in the water to proliferate because of public safety issues, but also aesthetics. The DEP has said that the single metal post is exempt from their permitting, and they were powerless to do anything, and they said it would rely on a local sign ordinance for the local government to enforce. So with the pilot program, if the owner's been contacted but has not responded back subsequently, to my knowledge, I think they just sent a request out Friday as to whether they wanted to proceed with the pilot program. The pilot program would be that they take out these 2 signs, and that the sheriffs are available for calls for trespass, and they would go to the property if a trespass request was made, and they would examine the facts and circumstances of each individual trespass request. The property owner asked for a more blanket sheriff's policy, and they said no, they can't do that because of prosecutorial discretion and because of the very many types and myriad of things that could arise. There's no one size fits all. So the pilot program is to take out the signs and see if the enforcement with the sheriffs for the private property rights side of it can work. If that works, that would remove the 2 signs that are closest to the water. The city's still looking at potential sign ordinance revisions. Things under consideration are prohibiting all signs within X number of feet from the mean high water line. And that should encompass areas where the public walks parallel with the wet sand, even in the dry sand, but walking in that area, we want to make sure that there is a public access through there. Close to the wet sand area, you can see where the sheriff's vehicles drive and the tracks that are there. So it does appear that it is used for that purpose too, and which the owner doesn't object to. So we're trying to reach a reasonable approach to removing those signs.
Can I just ask, did you say they're trying to define a number of feet from the wet sand for that particular?
That is one potential idea that the city attorney's office is looking at. There may be other potential solutions.
Because that's what got the Walton War started, when they tried to, as I understand it, say, hey, this many feet is going to be for the public, and then everybody went, oh my God, no.
The distinction there, and you want to be careful of with the Walton case, is they said in that ordinance it was not about signs, it was about saying the public can walk here.
Exactly, that number of feet.
This would not say the public can walk here. This would just say, just like any other sign ordinance, here's the construction and location and materials that you put your signs on. Sign ordinances have to be content neutral. They're only addressing signs, and they're not addressing public access.
So I heard a couple things here that might help us for later today. One is this case reminded me, or not this case, because it's not a case, this situation reminded me that we originally, in this draft of the ordinance, the beach ordinance, had signage wording. Then it was removed because we were told that it would be in the actual sign ordinance that was being worked on. But what's happened since then is I read the sign ordinance. First off, I did see some interesting things, but one of the things I think it doesn't reflect, it was maybe a mistake, or maybe it's old, when I wasn't even there. The entire beach is in what the city calls the P zone, the preservation zone. And yet the sign ordinance talks about signs on the beach. In fact, the only signs on the beach that are allowed was in the resort zone. But they say, but even there, you don't put it on the beach, you put them on your hard land. And then it says, but remove them from the beach each night. Which I don't understand what that meant, but none of it really lines up, because since 2008 or so, it's been a preservation zone. So there's no beach in any of our zones other than the preservation zone. The other thing is post a trespass, or the reason to trespass. That comes up a lot. And we could really be helping our citizens and our private property owners if we could help guide people a little better. For instance, I view it as etiquette that if a business is selling food, don't have a picnic on their property, or in front of their restaurant. And if they're selling, drinks, don't ostensibly bring a cooler. And I'll talk later about this whole concept of private versus public, but if someone has a business, they have a license for that business, and if we could help guide the public to not be obnoxious, and you're rubbing it in the face of someone who's just staying in a hotel, and you're going to wheel out a chair or pay a company to deliver a chair, and some of that we're preventing now, because they're in the business. They got their BTR to have chairs, so don't make their guests feel bad. So the rules of when you could trespass someone, for doing these bad behaviors, I think would be helpful.
That's one thing that the owner asked for in the negotiations too. Better guidance to the public that some areas of the beach are public or private, maybe at the public beach access areas, be mindful of private property, something to that effect.
And actually, just remind me, the other thing that I think is really important is you mentioned customary use. And they mentioned in some of their public documents that because the mean high water line is a 19-year average, they were asserting that the 19-year average is out in the water. So I went and looked at ArcGIS and some other historical maps and documents. And in general, except for like Upham and Passagrel, I did observe that our beach has gotten smaller over the years. And so if one takes the 19-year average and puts a post in the sand, it moves. But then I said, but that's only one of the rights. The mean high water line out, over that 19-year period is, a sovereign land with the state. The separate issue is customary use. And customary use is no one, I guarantee, before they went out, looked at the ArcGIS maps or determined where that high water line was when they were walking over the dry sand or even the wet sand. So customary use is relative rather than absolute. Customary use has been that people have always walked along where they observe where the high water line to be and believe that to be the sovereign. And customary use has been, I believe, people walking on the beginning parts of the dry sand or actually sitting on the dry parts of the dry sand. But again, I think there's always been objection, and they haven't been open and notorious. I think there's always been objection to people who were then, doing the very thing that property owner was in the business of doing. They'd object if you put a chair up against their chair. So anyway, I'm thinking that if we could get some of that into this ordinance, something to help get, without dictating too much in customary use, that also could be something that we've learned from this incident, but also could help us in general. Let me get into that part. Just a thought.
Any other comments on this situation?
Yes, sir.
I just want,
One more thing on you were mentioning the resort zone and the signs must be removed. Believe when we were out there, there are like sandwich board signs that are plastic. You pick them up and then you can move them and put them out. Those tend to be at the Cabana alcohol sales area or the actual chair area. There'll be like an informational sign. These chairs are for this property. Here's the number. And those are removed. And I think there are also stakes that are placed in the alcohol sales area that don't appear to be marked. They're just stakes. And then Brandon is here and he can explain the interaction with the sign ordinance and the beaches area and what we found when we went to the sign code to examine, compare what the signs were at the Undertow to the sign code. He can explain some of what we were able to find there.
Yeah, my point on the sign was also just, besides that it may have fallen out too soon, was that maybe it's a Scrivener's error, but they write about, signs on the beach in the resort zone. There's no such thing. There's signs on the beach in the preservation zone that adjoins or is, abutting the resort zone.
if I may, two questions. One, in this situation that brought this all on, there was no dispute traversing, is it laterally or whatever the word?
It wasn't about the perpendicular.
It wasn't, so
Yeah.
customary use and walking.
It wasn't about parallel either.
Though a topic wasn't in dispute here.
Well, no, but customary use and sitting was a topic, and that's.
Well, he didn't.
It seemed as though they were trying to make sure that they weren't entering the customary use area by saying they weren't expressly they weren't objecting to people walking, people sitting without chairs, probably being mindful of the customary use and trying to limit their objections to tents, coolers with alcohol, those types of more egregious, maybe non-traditional uses.
Right, so it's not the customer use isn't part of this, it's just whether the customer use is only for walking, or the customer use is for people sitting. I mean, our own mayor was attempted to, at one of the places to remove, because he was sitting under a tent at a place, as I understand. So, I mean, I think it's customer use to talk
My
about.
second question is, do you guys plan to come back to us with a sign ordinance for us to discuss signs for the beach?
We can ask Brandon to come
Yeah.
up.
Not today, when you're prepared, because you said you guys were working on potentially updating the sign ordinance like that. Is that something that's going to update to avoid the proliferation of signs across the beach? Is that something you're working on?
So I think, and Brandon can talk about this a little bit more, sign ordinance, the sign ordinance itself typically doesn't come to you. The beach ordinance comes to you. We were trying to consolidate everything about the beaches into the beach ordinance, but I think the sign ordinance needs to stay separate as a
Okay.
sign ordinance, where it's really just addressing signs.
He was your predecessor.
So I think what we would do something like signs in the beach preservation zone and have criteria for that, and that would be in the regular
Sign ordinance.
sign ordinance, and that will probably be best brought to you as a separate
Right.
ordinance if we were to bring it to you for advisory recommendations and reviews, since you focus on the beach. I think that could be discretionary
You just
to
wrapped
do
up.
that. But we want the sign ordinance to be separated. If we're going to regulate these
Right.
signs, we want it to be just about signs.
Exactly.
That's the best legal defense, is that these signs are just signs. So I'm sorry, Brandon.
He
I've
stole
talked
your,
too
he
long.
stole your thunder.
I didn't have anything
That's
to add to
what I
that.
assumed the answer to be, so,
You agree with that, Brandon? Okay.
because we need to think about, there are signs, single post signs that we like, stay off the dunes.
So the lawyer for the...
Turtle, stay away from turtle nests, stay away from birding nests, right? Those are good signs that we want to allow, and the turtle nest might be so far away from the mean high water line. We have no idea with that. So we have to think through to make
Right.
sure that we're doing that the right way in the preservation zone to make sure we're solving the situation about signs and
So signs are complicated because of the case law that you have to be content neutral. If you have to read the sign to see if it's in compliance, that's not content neutral. So if you have to read a sign that says black skimmer nesting area, you don't want to set it up that way, because now you're talking about content. So it's very complicated. So
Don't leave with your drink.
we have to make it about, we have to work with the First Amendment issues and make sure we're covering everything adequately. But I do like the idea about signs in the beach preservation zone, and then having some criteria that are related to placement, location, construction materials. And there typically will be an exemption for government signs or government, and I'm hoping that the areas that are cordoned off for sea turtle nests and for nesting birds, apart from signage, we can address that as areas that are placed off limits or cordoned off, or whatever wording we come up with to make sure that that's still allowed to happen.
I have all the confidence in the legal team to come up with appropriate language. Okay. Any other conversation on that matter?
I mean, I've been on beaches where every property owner has a sign on the beach that tells you it's private. I would hate to see that up and down our beach with metal posts all the way along saying this is private property, So I'm hoping we're not heading that direction. But I understand the concerns, and understand for a business, who could lose their liquor license. I mean, those are very legitimate concerns. So they need to be able to, not have issues with their business, so.
There's liability issues, there's
Yeah.
subrogation
Yeah.
issues, there's all sorts of
Yeah.
fascinating things
But, yeah,
that come in letting people on your property.
no, yeah, I agree.
Those
But-
issues were raised too in the meeting,
Yes.
liability.
Thank you for what must have been a very difficult topic.
Yes. If we're okay, we can move forward to the recommendation of ordinance 2025-02 to the City Commission. Brandon?
Morning, Brandon Berry, planner. If we could get the screen pulled up. The board's amenable to this. I will go through the changes that were discussed at the forum, focus on the modifications that I made that I feel are significant instead of... Can you hear me better now? If the committee is amenable to it, I will go through the changes to the ordinance that we discussed at the community forums and cover those big modifications, and then we can go back if
In
if
our
needed.
last meeting, we went line by line, so
Good.
I was, just go through the changes of what happened since our last line by line meeting.
Sounds good.
Because I missed the last meeting, I watched it until I almost wanted to cry, and then I turned it off and only watched it again yesterday. I did have some comments about things where one person would say one thing that I don't believe was true, but then it would just snowball, and it might be nice, I think it would be helpful to revisit some of the things that even weren't changed between last meeting and this meeting, because I think there's more comments to be had.
How do the other members feel of going back?
I think most of my comments were on highlighted areas, so those were things that were added in yellow, but
I would agree with that as well.
I mean, my problem was it wasn't during one of the scheduled meetings, and so besides it being an extra meeting, I had a medical issue that didn't allow me to be here.
You know, I
And
thought,
I wasn't allowed to be remote, or I would have participated, but it wasn't allowed to do that either.
yeah, I actually thought about that, and, you know, the process we went through, there were several, and I understand it's a health issue, but for any time we have a special meeting, there were multiple dates set out, and unfortunately,
I couldn't make any of them.
You couldn't make any of them for either meeting, and it's just, at what point do we move forward of that? I was under the belief, and Brandon, I thought that you said you received comments from Vice Chair. I
That was
could be
earlier.
wrong, but
That was earlier.
in.
I've been working on this for 3 years.
I understand. I just, at some point, we have to move forward.
I don't object, I had no issue with the fact that it moved forward. I just now have some comments on some of the things that may have gotten glossed over or missed, or just didn't have all the information at the time. So I just wanted to provide my input on some of those other points.
How does the committee, would you?
Jenny, how much time have we allocated for this meeting?
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half. So we've got a hard stop at 10:30?
Well, it can go over if you need to.
If we're mindful of the time, I just,
If you can be succinct as we're going through the highlighted, if there's things in between
yeah,
that you want
Oh,
to
okay.
just
yeah.
talk.
Okay.
But again, I've been working on this almost 2 years, and
Sure.
it's one of those, how many times, the sausage grinder, the blades in the sausage grinder are now dull.
Right.
At some point,
That's good.
we've got to make some sausage.
That's good.
Oh, yeah, I'm not stalling it past the meeting. I'm just trying to make sure that
Okay.
some things get considered. Thank you.
All right, so let's get started. I will stop at the highlighted areas to explain. This pertains to construction of shelters, other structures on the beach. I just added that as authorized by Section 95.4. We do allow for cabanas, tikis, and so on that are authorized in other sections of this code.
So you're at what section right now?
This is starting at the beginning of the ordinance. This is on page, 4 of the ordinance itself.
28.
This is a modification to 5826.
I'm sorry. I see this on page 27 of 99. I print out the,
Yeah. Count trees.
If you go by section numbers, regardless of which version you have, you'll be able to find it.
It's a little bit different
58,
for
We'll pay attention.
58-26.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first comment was at 95 too, so I think that's later, yeah. it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Looked into it between the forums and this meeting. Currently, and I believe there's been some discussion in the legislature over the last few years, it's gone from completely preempting polystyrene regulations to, I believe last year there was discussion on extending the ability of cities to prohibit polystyrene on the beach or in public places generally. None of those bills have passed at this point in time. The bill is still, or the law is still what was put in place in 2016. Cities can regulate polystyrene use on public property. We cannot prohibit it on private property. That would extend to the beach as well. So on the city's beaches, at direction of the committee, there could be no polystyrene used on the public beach.
There is a bill pending to expand the single-use plastics bans to a larger area. We'll see if that passes or not, and that may happen while this is going to the city council, at which point we would make some appropriate amendments.
Okay.
I did, never mind. Yeah, I did notice something earlier in the old 9470 that was moved to 5832. You have the sleeping ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
But where in the beach chapter do you have sleeping? Chapter 95.
Are we,
It's-
did you skip ahead of the
Oh,
motorized? think
I
you-
did, I lost it, I'm
Well,
sorry.
While you're looking at that,
But it's actually just a general question, yeah.
for people who want to follow the auxiliary container single-use plastics bill, it's Senate Bill 240, and it went to the Environmental and Natural Resource Committee yesterday, November 18th. I don't know the results of that hearing, but that's a preliminary stop. So it's Senate Bill 240. That would give us more power to regulate.
Okay. Brandon?
Vice Chair Kurzman, the point you just brought up, I was thinking of that as I went through these amendments. I don't see any harm in just having a reference in the beach ordinance to this section, just to make it clear. We try to tie back where we can so that if the committee is amenable to that, I'll just add a line in the beach division.
Just rephrase that so I understand.
Just a reference to.
I was on the highlight,
Sorry.
skipped ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And now, I thought we were going back, so
So this.
It's not in here. I think I mentioned it wasn't
I know.
in here, that's the point.
I was going to the next change we were going to review. So we're jumping around.
So I will add a reference in Chapter 95 to Section 5826, just so within the beach chapter, it's clear that there is no sleeping permitted on the public beaches in the city. I will just make a reference back to that.
It's coming up, isn't it? Oh.
It's not in chapter 95. That was-
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
He jumped ahead.
I missed it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go back to where we were working on.
So our current micromobility device definition, it's not in Chapter 95. I am adding a reference to the definition in Chapter 74 to Chapter 95, just to relate back and make it clear for those who are trying to understand what I'm referring to in that chapter. But our current micromobility device definition is in line with the one that was in state law back in the early 2020s. It has been significantly modified since then. At the time, the definition of micromobility device was defined more around the service use of the devices, talking about fleets, Bird and Lime, and the other actual fleet services that used micromobility devices. So that's where you got more of the definition as it tied back to the number of devices. The definition has changed in the statute. It is now pertaining more to the device itself. What I did...
Statute, the state or yours?
The state.
Okay.
So this definition is a combination, and this again is in Chapter 74. This is our micromobility ordinance, but the Chapter 95 definition ties back to this, and I'll show this in a moment. The definition is being modified to include the language that is currently in the definition. It also includes language that ties in more with the devices themselves. So that's in the highlighted portion here. The weight limit, the general range of speed, the reference to the human-powered and non-human-powered devices like bicycles, electrical bikes, and so on. That is all part of the state's definition. What is being brought in from our current definition are the parts of the definition that relate to the use of an online application, scheduling for point-to-point trips, and electrical personal assistive mobility devices. Because our ordinance is based around rentals and how registration and all occurs for those fleet micromobility services, I wanted to keep that in because it is something that's important for how we regulate them generally, not on the beach, but that's where that language came from. It's just being brought forward from our current definition. And then, of course, we still have the assistive device exemption from this. We do not prohibit those on the beach, and that will still be the case. So I just wanted to explain that. We have a later section that deals with micromobility on the beach itself, but that's where this definition came from.
I'll discuss micromobility, I think, when we get to this, the actual regulation. But this definition, as I understand it, yeah, the state definition, and I think it's just important that people understand history. When the city made the ordinance, they advertised for streets and sidewalks and micromobility. And so at the time, because the state definition of micromobility was rentals, and every meeting up to that point, they said, we need to address all these rentals. The private personal devices got sort of thrown in without the public notice, preceding all the people involved here. There's been a lot of feedback that I've gotten of people saying that that was a very scary part, and that they included the beach too at the last minute. And the beach was not part of the streets and sidewalks either. So it caught people by surprise. And unfortunately, then TI heard that we did it, and then they did it. And I even went to their meeting and said, well, hold on, it didn't even go through the process yet in St. Pete. It didn't matter. So TI sort of followed because we did it. And I, we have golf, well, I don't want to get into that now.
Are we going?
That's it. That's on the definition.
Yes.
Other than I don't understand why it's only for a motorized transportation device designed for individual use. In other words, what's the intent of that phrase being added?
That is really just to line up with the state definition.
Okay. Thank you.
This was unstruck. This had been struck potentially accidentally. It might have been related to the ongoing litigation, but this was unstruck. The highlighted language about the beach behind blocks M and N, that was the direction of the committee.
Can you check one thing on that? I believe the southern boundary is Cabrillo and not 30th. If you have a issue finding that, I have a survey someplace.
Okay. Thank you.
But I believe it is Cabrillo, and then on the 32nd there is a public beach access, and then 30th is south of that. But
yes.
Okay.
So I had a question about this. I know we talked about it, but I couldn't remember, why did we add in this private area beach specifically?
It was there, and then it got taken out.
Okay.
And the question is, why was it ever taken out? Because it was always there. Because back when, I do know the history, when it was put in, it was to prevent people from sleeping on the beach in
Right.
M&N, which is what the neighborhood wanted.
Okay.
But that was before I even lived here. So.
Okay, because I was like, is it enforceable by the city? Like, if the association...
Not with this here.
Huh?
With this here it is.
Okay, even though it's private? Yeah, okay.
Are you up? Okay, I'll see where you are.
Okay, moving on to Chapter 95. This is both new content and content that is being moved over from other divisions, chapters. This is just, again, a reference back to the definition that we just discussed for micromobility devices. No change definition. It's just a relation back to Chapter 74.
Okay.
I didn't see a reason to have a separate service animal definition from Florida statute. Not that that changes frequently, but just tie it back to the statutory definition for service animal.
On smoking, I watched the video, and I think there was a little change of heart. The definition of smoking that's listed here distinguishes smoking from vaping. It does not include vaping as a type of smoking. So it defines smoking, and then it defines vaping, and those are two separate things here. And I think when we got later on to the actual ordinance related to smoking, they just sort of like, oh, well, vaping. But it's not defined as a type of smoking in this, as I read it. I read it to distinguish between the two.
And I did amend to make it clear that we are also referring to vaping in Chapter 9510, or Section 9510, but City Attorney, I had read that to mean vaping is considered smoking, therefore.
Yeah, here all we're doing is defining the word smoking. Smoking would be cigars, cigarettes, and vaping. And then later on, there's some state-limited partial preemptions about what we can and can't do. So then we get to the substance later on in the ordinance.
But in the ordinance, someone said, oh, well, vaping is listed as a type of smoking, so, of course it's illegal. But no, that was, we deliberately had already carved it out, because nobody's leaving vape butts around the beach.
It's in the substantive section.
Right, I'm just pointing out here that this is a distinction, not an inclusion, as written.
Yes.
Just defining words.
You're correct.
We're in the definition section.
Was that? And I am too.
He's just pointing it out, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, it's correct.
Okay, thank you. And on temporary structure in the definition section, a structure erected for a period of 180 days or longer shall not be considered a temporary structure. When it comes to a beach, as we use the term, I would suggest anything that's, pulled out at the end of the day would be considered temporary. It's not 180 days. In fact, if you leave it overnight, it's not temporary when it comes to the beach. This is not a building code distinction. Mm-hmm. This is the intent of what we're trying to control, which is it here permanently or is it here temporarily? And if you bring it in every night, it's automatically temporary.
Isn't that what this definition says? It says if it's less than 180 days, or if it's more than 180 days, it's no longer considered a temporary structure.
I think that line is a little
The
late.
reason that's in there, I think Brandon can talk about it, is if you're over 180 days, you have to get a full building permit.
Right, from the context of building permits. I'm saying for the context of the beach, a temporary structure might just be something that's there only until before
Let's keep that in
move out the
mind
next morning.
Let's keep that in mind as we get to the substantive section of the ordinance about
Yeah,
regulation of temporary.
We can come back to that, because that is a good point. I want to talk about the distinction here. Let me just note that. Okay. All right, looking at section 95.4, chairs, tables, benches, cabanas, and umbrellas. We have gone with, based on the recommendation from the committee, a registration process. Those who are setting up chairs, tables, umbrellas, or cabanas, regardless of location, would need to register with the city. We would just need to know that they are operating within our city. We already get that level of registration, that level of information for anyone who is operating behind a resort where they have private land.
BTR.
Correct. They go through the BTR, they register with us, and they renew yearly. Those who operate, and we have a lot of enterprises that will bring a cabana or a table out to the public beach, and then they'll pick it up at the end of the day. We don't know that they're operating. They will call me to ask if they're allowed to operate in our jurisdiction that way, but that's the only information that we get from them. So those enterprises would need to register with the city just so that we know that they're operating within our jurisdiction. We have tied it to the renewal of the business tax receipt for those that are existing on any private beach land. So
I've got a few things on this part of it. One is, very important for customary use, that the phrase private beach or public beach is very significant. I like that in some parts of this ordinance, it says private beach land or public beach land, because it sort of then suggests that we're not talking whether that the beach is private or public, but that the land is private or public. So I like that. But then this part now refers to a term called public access beach. Is that yet a different category of distinction, or what? I just want to be I think we're safest if we stick to some key phrases and only use those phrases to avoid problems later.
I have no concerns with going through the ordinance and changing it to public and private beach land. City Attorney, do you have any concerns with? I don't know of any distinction where we're trying to differentiate between.
Or is
the
it
land
beach on
itself.
private land, beach on public land? What do you think would steer clear of showing that later on someone could argue, oh, well, the city has already accepted that this is my private beach. Customary use was extinguished when the city made that adoption. That's the issue that I'm raising and have the concern about. It's not opening the door for future belief that the city's now endorsed a private beach.
Yeah, customary use doctrine applies on its own. It's by case law in the courts, and it's not dependent on the city or a city ordinance. Even if you have no city ordinance that says we recognize customary use doctrine exists throughout Florida. If you wanted to do something for customary use, the most I would recommend doing is having a section that says the city of St. Pete Beach recognizes the customary use doctrine, period.
Yeah, that part would be good, but again, what I read in something was that some people have already used the defense that because their city had already said that it was a private beach, they had already extinguished some of those arguments to then say, oh,
I think in this section, we're not running afoul of it. As Brandon is explaining here, this section is addressing chairs, tables, umbrellas, cabanas.
But it refers to I think somewhere here it talks about a public access beach, and I didn't know what a public access beach was versus a public beach.
Brandon, do we have that in the definition?
It's not separately defined, and I think we decided to not make those definitions. But public access beach was a term that was a holdover from some earlier version of this ordinance. I believe it was originally tied into. I'm not sure what it means at this
Where does
point.
it
So
appear
if it's clear to
I
just.
have for 95.4 that the phrase public access beach is mentioned.
Where is that? I think we took.
Oh, the first one in A, the last sentence in A.
Can you scroll up to A,
Yes.
Brandon? Sorry.
Which would interfere with the use of the public access beach. So maybe that means including the high water line, people walking the high water line, or does it only mean the county and Upham?
Unlawful for any person to place upon the public beach that alone or combination which in size that would interfere the use of the public access beach.
And you've added the word access, that's the new insertion.
Correct, but that had been a holdover from an earlier version of the ordinance I wasn't involved with. I didn't
Okay.
want to take that term out if it had some meaning to the committee, so.
We could take it out at this point. It doesn't add anything.
Well, but is it public, then I would say public beach
The
land.
intent here is that you're not supposed to preempt the public from using the public beach by setting up a huge area at one of our public beaches that preempts other people from using it without getting a special event permit.
Yes, so public beach land then?
You could take out public access beach and just leave public beach.
Okay.
So if it's used by the public on private land, you can do it?
If it's private land, you can set up,
No, now we're getting into
it's
the,
on your private land. So
But I'm talking
this is
about the-
preempting the public beach area.
but now you're getting into a person who brings their own chair and puts it on what's primary,
trespass, yeah, that's when the trespass starts.
I thought we just said that if it's customary use, that people are sitting there and doing that. So that's why I'm hung up. We said they wouldn't be trespassed.
What is your suggested language on,
A public beach land. Or, if that's the intent.
in where, what section, which?
A, the end of A, last sentence of A. Because someone's going to bring their beach chair.
Instead of saying the word access, you say public beach land?
That's what you've done in a number of other spots, so I was trying to follow along. Or that's what the
I don't think
ordinance
the word
does.
land adds anything. You could just say public beach or public,
Well, no, because public beach is referring to an activity. Public beach land is a noun referring to a place. I'm trying to distinguish between an activity and a place. This is relating to a place.
I don't see a problem with adding land if you want to add land.
Thank you.
So I just want to remember, we did talk about being mindful of time, and we're grinding through this again.
I can think nothing could be more important than making sure we're not disrupting the customary use rights of the public and residents.
And as we
and-
reviewed these before, I had those in mind.
Brandon, what's the scope of the meeting right now, this section of the meeting?
The plan was to go through the highlighted changes, where there are certainly other items that we might need to touch on, just to give context.
How much time did you allocate for this?
I think we had till 10:30, but we have more time if
We
needed.
have two ordinances to go through, is that correct?
Correct.
The other one went a lot quicker, and, well, I guess, what does the agenda say? The agenda says
I think
that it's to discuss the recommendation of the ordinance, so it's not to discuss only the latest
I
changes.
think we need to move on.
Yeah, well, we did, we covered it.
I would just ask any comments from the committee to be concise, to the point, and that we can move forward more efficiently.
Yeah, I think okay.
Okay, item D is an addition that was requested by the committee. It shall be a violation of this ordinance for a franchise to operate on any private beach. You could change that to private beach land without permission of the landowner, just certifying that. C relates to registration on the public and private beach land. D would be, we don't restrict setups on the public beach unless they're of a nature that would prohibit use of the beach. But on private land, we are not preempting the ability of the landowner to prohibit franchise
So
setup.
could a company come in and just put up a whole bunch of chairs for rent that doesn't have our franchise on the public beach, based on the way this is worded?
Well, I think under A, that would be a judgment call by the sheriff's office or the code enforcement department. But if it would interfere with the use of the beach by the general public, there would have to be a judgment call made on that. We didn't look into actual dimensional standards. I think that was something we were potentially going to consider under the third ordinance. But at this point in time, we don't have actual dimensional or...
So someone could just sprinkle chairs around with a little sign and then say, you can't sit on that unless you pay me on the public beach based on this?
The private beach, you have to get permission.
I'm talking about the public beach.
Public beach is controlled by the city or the county.
I know. And normally we even have people that have paid or somehow won the bid to be the vendor for those places. And the way this is written, I view that someone could just come in and sprinkle their chairs ahead of time, and you go on the app and then you pay. And you're just in direct competition to people that are working hard to run a business on our public beaches.
They can't sell, right? They have to be registered with the city to sell anything on the beach, correct?
No, this is that whole thing where people are allowed to come and do their own thing with this way. They're
You
delivering.
have to get approval to do any commercial activity on the beach, on the public beach.
That would be, to your point, that would be more in line with the registration. They would not give us a setup map or anything like that. It would just be a recognition that they are operating in our jurisdiction.
Okay, move on. Thank you.
Coming down to 95.5, picnics.
Oh, no, give me 90E. I've gotten a lot of people very concerned about the 10 by 10. You did remove the wording that was in the last version that said measured at the base, because that was particularly bad. Where people would put you have sandbags that stretch out, so it goes out further. So this is, you're saying here, this is the final version. And 10 by 10 is okay, no height restrictions either.
No, this is a carry forward from an earlier version of the
Thank you.
ordinance.
Thank you.
Section 95.5, picnics may be allowed on the beach, subject to the regulations in subsection B. Consumption of alcohol, again, this is really just deferring to later sections, explaining where the regulations can be found. Amending B1 to state that depositing litter can only be within a lawfully provided container. This gives more detail to the earlier statement that polystyrene is prohibited. This is particularly under a section where it would be reasonable for someone to think about bringing one of these products onto the beach. They are still prohibited on the public beach. The use and possession of plastic straws associated with any picnic or food or beverage consumption on any beach is prohibited. That is within the city's right to regulate. In talking with the city attorney, there was a recommendation that we potentially make an exemption for certain medical conditions. Is that correct? Ralph?
I'm sorry?
Looking at the straw prohibition, you had made a recommendation that we make
Yeah,
a
this is
medical.
good for now, and then if the bill passes, Senate Bill 240, we can make some adjustments.
Could we adjust this now, though, to just not allow glass containers or bottles, period? Whether, I don't care if it's because they decided to consume the food or not. I think glass is dangerous on the beach. I mean, your eyeglasses are okay, so maybe that's the distinction you're trying to make, but glass bottles or containers, I think, should not be on the beach, period. I don't know if anybody has a problem with why it has to be.
So you were talking about a exception for medical reasons.
That would be
Or
specific
glass.
for straws. I had gotten clarification that's in
You said
part of it.
straws.
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
So we went from straws to glass containers. I mean,
Oh, it's on-
I'm trying
it's
to
on the
catch up
screen.
here because we're jumping around.
No, this is the item he was discussing. He covered glass containers. And he was
but
talking about
he-
the medical
he was-
exemption.
Then he said straws to him.
For a medical exemption?
No, you jumped, before we got an answer of that, you jumped in with.
No, I don't think so.
With glass containers. So can we, should there be to your question first, before this started, to Ralph, about
I
a
haven't looked
straw?
at glass. I would have to
No, we're talking
do
about
some
straws, straws.
Which
That
item
was
is that?
your
Is that on the
question.
screen? Is straws on the screen right now?
research. The use and possession of plastic straws associated
That's what
with.
we
Oh,
were
we're-
talking
okay, we're-
about. That's what we were talking about.
So I went to the one above it, before it.
Glass containers or bottles associated with the consumption of food or beverages shall be prohibited. So we have a prohibition on glass in there already.
So there's no glass on the beach.
Where does it say that? I'm sorry?
3,
3. No, it says associated with the consumption of food. I was recommending
Or beverage.
striking consumption of food.
we have or beverages. Oh. you
Or,
want-
yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
People to eat food out of glass containers but not drink out of glass.
No, glass containers or bottles shall not be permitted.
He just wants blanket, no glass.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read this backwards. You're saying that glass containers or bottles are allowed on the beach?
Prohibited.
It says glass containers or bottles associated with the consumption of food or beverages shall be prohibited.
Okay, so then why does it have to only be with the consumption of food? Why can it not say glass containers or bottles shall be prohibited?
If that's the pleasure of the committee. Like trying to wrap my brain around why other glass would be on the beach. And I just
So then it's redundant.
had enough time to think about what other kind of glass things might come to the beach. But you certainly could.
Yeah,
Say
I
glass containers or bottles shall be prohibited.
That's what I
That's
was
fine.
trying to suggest.
No glass on the beach.
No glass
They would
containers or
strike
bottles.
the
It's
words
in
from
the bylaws.
associated all the way to beverages.
Containers or bottles still should stay there, just not the mention of the food or beverage. Thank
Can
you.
we go back to your question of straws?
Yeah.
Could you repeat your question to the city attorney?
Yes, it sound, and he did provide clarification. There is a pending bill that would exempt straw use for when it's necessary under medical conditions. So that's something we could potentially add now. We could revisit in the future.
I think it's best to wait to see how the bills pan out. This is one that we're kind of at the mercy of the legislature.
Well, even if it's for medical use, they can still use paper or the, what do you call it, the stainless steel straws. There's lots of different products now that they can make straws out of.
I'm not a medical professional, and I can't imagine what
Someone with a swallowing difficulty, or well, not even swallowing, like a stroke, like sometimes.
I don't know all of them, so that's where I
Yeah.
think we should go with whatever the state goes to. And
Yeah, well, I was just saying, you don't have to outlaw all
I don't-
straws.
I'm not a medical
But-
professional, nor do I play one on TV, so I can't guess on what a doctor
There's
might
some now, there's some
require.
biodegradable plastics that are available.
I'm just saying outlawing plastic straws doesn't outlaw all straws, like, right? Is that what?
This would allow some of the other beaches will have paper straws only, so you can get a paper straw. Some cities say straws only upon request at places that are selling drinks. This would say, right now, the use and possession of plastic straws associated with picnic or food or beverage consumption on a beach is prohibited. So if you have a
Right.
drink with a straw in it and it's plastic, you have to take it off the beach.
McDonald's gives paper.
Here's an example. There's the paper straw.
Yeah, there's lots of other straw products,
Those
so.
degrade. The idea is that the paper will degrade where the plastic will last for 1,000 years.
It'll degrade before I finish it.
All right, moving on to C. This is just stating specifically that the city needs to issue a permit to authorize beach fire pits unless one has been issued. Open and uncontrolled flames on the beach are prohibited. When we post signs at beach access points, beach ends, city parks, other appropriate locations, they can reference this language. Doesn't require the city to post the signs, but where they do, they will reference this language.
For D, where it says penalties for consumption of food or drink, was that back when picnics weren't allowed? Should that be taken out? Is there a place where consumption of food or drink is not allowed?
I think that was intended more just to be anything that is violating this section, but you're right, this could be clarified to allude back to the earlier prohibitions, so maybe including that language.
Where was that, Brandon?
It is in D, in the highlighted section, signs shall contain language referencing the penalties for consumption of food, drinks. We don't prohibit food, drinks, so I'll modify that to. All right, getting down to 25.8, we have learned, I have learned that the state does not require certain maintenance activities within the dunes. However, historically, the city, well, at least in recent history, the city has asked for a permit for those activities. This is just clarifying that even if the Florida Department of Environmental Protection does not require the permit, it is something that we ask for. It is more of a registration, just to notice that work or maintenance is going to be occurring within the dunes. And I know that our former beach manager had been issuing permits for that, and we would just like to continue doing that in a codified manner. Section 95.9, beach maintenance regulations, just adding in a reference back to what I just talked about. There are additional maintenance of dune standards that we don't want to remove out of Division 25. They work effectively where they are, but just to tie back to cite that you can find additional regulations in that division.
So you just covered that one, so I just request that we go back to 95.8. I watched the video, and I think that there was some, I don't know if they acknowledged that they were changing it, or, but the past plan had been that the bicycles would be allowed on the beach with a permit. I'm not talking about e-bikes. The past agreement had been that bicycles would be allowed with a permit. However, because it was also interesting that the criteria for issuance didn't include things such as someone having a permit for a bicycle, and other reasons, the bicycles were stricken. I think it's valuable to leave bicycles in. This is a great place for kids to ride their bike on quiet days. For instance, just go to the beach today, after this meeting. Look around. I mean, this time of year, the beach is very, very quiet. And I would really suggest that we rethink this section a little bit because, first off, turtle season, understand. No bikes or e-bikes during turtle season. We know when that is. It's been written as May 1st to October for turtle season. We generally mark where the birds are nesting or the baby birds are. We have a speed limit in here of 10 miles an hour. And, you know, certainly you could put in a rule that says you need to not be operating your bike with 100 feet of a person or 50 feet of a person, or pick a number. You don't have to deprive and take away that. I mean, I have to tell you, you know, when I moved here, I loved watching the fireworks at night when there was weddings. I loved taking a yoga class that was inexpensive because you just made donations. And I loved riding my bike, you know, on the beach after those yoga classes. And I just feel like this used to be a fun place. And we're just coming up with more and more things to not do. I mean, it's easy to always say, just make something illegal. I think it's much more valuable, and I think it's a duty upon us, and we don't have to do it now, but to carve out and say, this is the concern, and also to keep it constitutional. This is the concern, and so we're making it illegal, something illegal for this time or age group, or put rules around it. But to just blanketly make bikes and e-bikes illegal and everything else, I think we're overstepping. And I'm going to say that now, and thank you.
I think we discussed this at length, and I even acknowledged that Vice Chair had an issue with that, if we all remember that conversation. As I hear from citizens or residents, the number one complaint on the beach is dogs on the beach. The second one is bikes and e-bikes. And since the meeting that we had this conversation to today, I've received 2 texts and 1 phone call of almost getting hit by people, 2 on bikes, 1 on an e-bike. And I've almost been hit by a bike, an e-bike. And though I do think in a perfect world we could say 100 feet and only on non-busy days, I don't know how you enforce that.
Well, let's figure that out.
I think it's unenforceable, but nevertheless, to the safety and the feedback that I get from the people that reach out to me, and I go out actively and talk, and I go to as many district meetings I can, not only my own in 4, but to others in 3 and 2 and 1, as I know about them. And, you know, I've never heard that issue brought up. That they support it. I've only heard that I'm tired of almost getting hit. I've seen they weave in and out. It's usually people that are getting aggressive and on a weekend. So
No weekends.
I'm in full support that we keep it as we discussed, and we actually had consensus at our special meeting.
Well, I heard things at that special meeting that
If I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's finish this one out. Respectfully, Vice Chair, we understand your position, and you've articulated it well. So let us discuss. I'll start down here.
I definitely am not for bikes on the beach,
Or e-bikes?
or e-bikes either. None of them.
Okay.
I talked to a neighbor yesterday who enjoys riding their bicycle on the beach, and the discussion was that she doesn't use an e-bike. She's been doing it since she moved here years and years ago. However, this morning walking on the beach, as my husband and I, there was a flock of seagulls right on the shore area. As we're walking by, they're all just chilling, and then a bicycle comes the other direction, and like a flock of like 50 birds like takes off in front of us because the bike startled the birds, whereas the lady running after the birds landed again, a lady ran past them, and of course they just, they didn't move. So I personally am not in favor of bikes on the beach, and I think they're disruptive.
No bikes on the beach.
I heard, people talking about making assumptions about how birds have been hurt. And I heard a number of different things, I'm not going to go in now, that just were not, we, in one breath we say we're worried about the birds flying into the windows and getting hurt. And then in the next breath, well, if a bird's hurt, it must have been due to an e-bike.
So,
We don't
let's do a
know.
point of order. So I think we've discussed this. We've all come to, and we've heard your
Okay.
concerns, Vice Chair. I even brought it up when we were discussing it
I heard
in
you.
your absence,
I heard
out
that.
of respect for you.
Thank you.
And I think we can move forward.
I did just want to point out, this was not modified, but as we are stopped in this section, they would still be permitted of the 4 exemptions under a special event permit if there was a special event that featured bikes in some capacity. So we talked about the maintenance of dunes. Expanded the mechanical beach cleaning permitting requirements from February 15th to tie in with Pinellas County seabird nesting season to October 31st. That is the end of marine turtle nesting season.
I'm just going to mark that for when we get to the wildlife lighting ordinance.
Okay,
I'm going to refer back to that.
very good.
Have you already gone past 9510, or are you,
We are in 9510.
I'll let you speak, then I'll speak.
Going back to our discussion earlier, this clarifies that both smoking and vaping is prohibited. Starting or maintaining of fires or open flames on the beach, inclusive of public and private beach land, is prohibited except where it's been allowed under this chapter. This was a point from the committee at the last meeting that any kind of discharge of human waste is prohibited unless it's within an approved water closet, lavatory, urinal. Dumping of any litter is prohibited except within a container approved for such a purpose. Similar language is used earlier in the chapter for picnics and so on. We're getting now into 9510, pertaining to alcohol. This is an assemblage of multiple sections from the code, all into one section.
This is one where I've heard feedback about, if it's what I think it is. One is that, who are we helping when we restrict where people can drink? The guests of the hotels can drink in their cabana zones. Also, we said that we were not going to be calling them cabana zones anymore. There's only a meeting. We renamed them. The city commission agreed to that renaming. I think they were wet zones or something of that nature, because cabanas are something else. But hotels can have their drink, and I've had people say, "Well, I want to just go with Sunset with my Yeti and drink alcohol. Am I really going to break? I don't want to break the law." And then we have people that say, "Well, if it's the law, it's the law." So I think we need to consider our residents first, and think about a way that our residents. Maybe it should be that there's no obtrusive, there's no visible drinking, but making visible drinking, drunkenness is already illegal, but the issue is visible drinking, or rather than saying no alcohol. And it comes up. I've also been told by the attorney of the number of the hotels, they can't have a situation where if people try to leave the area, they're going to lose their license if it happens twice. They're going to have to put guards around the perimeter. And that's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do to this beach. I've seen people in the water with the cups, and they had umbrellas in them. I actually was once involved in a case where it was whether a red cup or a blue cup. And if it was a blue cup, it was okay. And if it was a red cup, it was illegal, because alcohol is usually in the red cups. So, but I mean, the point is, are you visibly drunk or not? Are you visibly drinking or not? Some of the cities, and I've looked into this, some of the cities have made it illegal during spring break time. They have different rules during spring break months to say, we don't want to turn into an attraction to bring the people that are trying to drink. But people, visible drinking is what I think is really the concern, I think. And I think we should make our laws match the concerns.
So two of the points you brought up, one of them, and I intended to address it. It may not have been effectively addressed, but there was quite a bit of content struck from what is currently section 65D4. Let me see if I can get down to that.
Yeah, 65D is where I was seeing this.
I do not believe the responsibility, as this is drafted, it was not intended, and I know this was discussed. I believe it even came up when this came forward as a consolidated ordinance with the commission. The intent is for serving to be within the cabana service area or the wet zone, but ultimately, if someone steps outside the wet zone and ignores requests to come back into the wet zone, they're the ones who would be cited, not the, that is the intent. That's what the language is intended for.
Right, good, thank you.
So,
Address the hotel's concern.
But it's still in there, isn't it, that the business would be fined and...
so the service can only be within the cabana service area, and if that needs to be clarified, I'm happy to do so, but they're responsible for serving within their area and having signs posted that you cannot leave the area. But if someone ignores them and they leave the area, the responsibility is not on the lodging facility if they've provided adequate notice. So,
I mean, and I've told people I don't think anybody's a search your Yeti unless you're doing something stupid already. But if we could somehow focus on the activity or the behavior versus the presence of a substance, it's not going to kill the birds if it spills.
I would like to hear from the committee on that item, though. Is it not clear enough that the hotel or the resort would be responsible for, or they would be the one cited? I can definitely change that language if needed. And that's specifically here in 9, service of alcohol shall only be provided within the cabana service area. So if they are serving outside of that area, that's where the penalties would come into play. But there's nothing explicitly in here that says that the hotel would be cited for someone leaving.
So I guess 11 is where it talks about the penalties. And I guess my thinking was the penalty was for someone stepping outside the boundaries, but that's not what the intent was.
No, and that individual could be cited for drinking on the public beach as currently written, but we would not cite the lodging facility.
Right, so it says in C, it shall be unlawful to drink or consume alcohol beverages on all sovereignty submerged land. So then later on, we have penalties, and it's not clear which things fall into the hotel's responsibility and people's responsibility for themselves.
Understood. The intent was for the penalties to be specific to subsection H.
Okay.
I can go back and make sure that the formatting is correct on that, but these penalties would apply only to violations of subsection H.
It confused the attorney also, so.
Understood.
At least an earlier version. Thank you.
When I read this, I didn't have any misconceptions. But I took it as what you originally intent.
That is a good point, though. I will clarify that to the commission. I know that did come up with a consolidated beach ordinance, so we'll discuss that. And this is just talking, not that we see many of these, but this is for special events. We are not limiting special events on the public beach lands. There is a limitation on the number of special event permits that can be issued to private beach land owners.
And thank you throughout this. In this section, it does use that word land afterwards. Thank you. That's where I got it from.
I don't know why, this was brought up at the forum. I don't know why the prohibition on chumming was removed. As far as I can tell, the guidance from FDEP, or Fish and Wildlife rather, still prohibits chumming exactly as stated here, so I did just add that language back in.
Going back to 9510D, though, I didn't quite catch, other than people thinking that was the earlier intent, that vaping was going to be illegal. There's a concern about litter of cigarette butts. Vaping encourages people to not use regular cigarettes and one vape might equal, a pack or more of cigarettes, so it's,
They leave the
The
inserts.
cartridges
The
are
cartridges,
everywhere.
but they would run out of the cartridges
But they throw-
1/30 the time, and I can't believe that they're really a problem of
The problem,
cartridges.
so the problem with cartridges is you don't know what product was in there. Sometimes there's a THC product, and I've worked in schools, and you can actually get transfer if you're picking that product up, and it has a really strong product in it. You can actually absorb it through your skin. So to me, a vape is way more dangerous than a cigarette butt. I don't pick them up without gloves or a bag, because you don't know what was in that
There's
vape.
germs on it. I don't think unless it's fentanyl, I'd be surprised. But I don't think that. So you're trying to protect the litter collection people in this?
Anyone, a child picks it up and starts playing in the sand with it, I mean,
And someone could leave a knife. Someone could leave something.
we're
A
not
peanut. There's a lot of things that.
I
could
pick
hurt
up
children.
hooks all the time. Yes, I know, there's lots of dangers.
I don't think that the whole beach should make vaping illegal because a child's going to pick up someone's litter.
I think they're looking also at plastic pollutions, plastic in the oceans.
Why are people throwing? Yeah, and again, there's plenty of plastic. We're not outlawing plastic. They're leaving their buckets and shovels. I saw a kid's plastic shovel on the beach, but we're not going to outlaw them because it might pollute the water. I think it's easy enough for people to be discreet, but I just think it's wrong that we're.
Your concern has been noted.
Yeah, thank you.
So prohibitions on chumming as stated have been re-included. Direction from the committee at the forum is to prohibit fireworks on the beach. This is brought in from the Naples ordinance. They have a similar prohibition. It was only expanded to include over any beach. So firing from the deck area over the beach would also be prohibited. This would be a blanket prohibition. I'll point out in Ordinance 2025-16, that would be the backup. It would be prohibited during turtle season through that ordinance. That will be amended to refer back to this section should the commission agree to a blanket year-round ban.
Thank you.
And I just want to note, as we're noting, I disagree with this fireworks prohibited on the beach except during turtle season. During turtle season, it's fine. But outside of turtle season, I think we should leave that alone.
Thank you.
Also, in carcasses, and I think anything that people are doing to teach predatory fish to come into our swimming area, really should be prevented. So I think really we should come up with not just about chumming, but why teach sharks that this is a good place to eat at a major swimming location?
As we've discussed at a previous meeting, to Florida statute, we cannot prevent shark fishing off our beach. We can say no chumming. Again, we've talked about that at a meeting a while ago, and well as the meeting here.
So
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's what we're trying to do with this.
So a link to the FWC.
As you saw when you watched the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah. And I know people that are going to be wearing their ARs and fishing since they can't ride their bike anymore, but we'll see how that goes.
Section 9516, talking about micromobility devices, it's in the definition, including bicycles, given that has been part of the focus, prohibited on the beach. I will say, just based on our earlier conversation, I will amend this sentence just to reference back to the special event permission earlier in the chapter, just to make it clear that they're prohibited except where authorized through one of those 4 exemptions. The one that would be applicable to bikes in most situations would be the special event permit. All right.
In 9517, vending on the beaches, I think that when it refers to, well, it should just cross-references this chapter 62, because chapter 62 is the peddler rule. And so anything you remove from one section, peddler's an activity, and I'm not referring to peddling a bike. It's peddling and soliciting. So I just think that 955-17 and 60, Chapter 62 should be related. And it said Gulf of Mexico, I think, or maybe I've got the wrong link.
Yeah, it's a little meandering in getting there because it references 9518, which references 62, but
Okay.
I'll absolutely include that reference. That makes sense.
And 9518, why remove the requirements for the solicitation line of a survey? Or did I jump ahead or behind?
No, this is in line with, let's say.
So 9518E was removed.
So you could take out the Gulf of Mexico, just say sandy beach areas for B.
Oh, yeah, B. B was, yeah, Gulf of Mexico.
Right. So just take out references because we only have one ocean or.
What does he want?
So in B, 90, I'll let you speak, go ahead. She was asking.
Take out the Gulf of Mexico from the ordinance, that way we avoid the political controversy.
Strike that.
And in F, or I'm sorry, E and F, I think E was copied somewhere else, but why is E removed? Why wouldn't we want that? Because when it was Chapter 62, it was there.
Yeah, E, I think the one that's stricken, that has some First Amendment concerns that, or this is kind of from the old ordinance, so we were taking it out to address solicitation case law that's arisen from the Florida, or the U.S. Supreme Court and the
Well, this is just,
courts.
this is just what the E I'm referring to, maybe that was F. The
This
E is,
establishment of a solicitation line on
Right.
individual property. Yeah, we can take that out.
so they could solicit
Not
anywhere now.
necessary.
Okay, thank you.
There was a request to add sand sculptures to the list of features that need to be flattened during turtle nesting season.
You may not expect to hear,
What section did you,
I'm sorry, this is 9519.
and I heard a big concern about holes,
E.
but did we address people, how deep a hole could be?
He's right here.
Or what kind of tools they could use, or
This is just filling it in after you leave the beach.
so they can do any depth? Because I heard somebody concerned about a kid getting, I don't know if it happened here. Okay.
if we could, I have one comment. I've prefaced it before. 2519 marine turtle nesting season from 1 to May 1st. Should that be, this is a can of worms. I don't know if we have to. We changed the date to February 15th for shorebird season. Do we need to touch that here, in your opinion? Do we need to change the date to be aligned and add shorebirds?
Did these things affect shorebirds?
Do we want to have separate seasons that are corresponding to the science and the biology? So the sea turtle season will be the sea turtle season, and shorebird season could be separated if they're not the same dates. But I don't want to.
Like if you look at,
We're saying marine turtle nesting season is from that. That should be just about turtles.
but if you look at, if you look at D, it says any turtle nest or nesting activity. Is that to be turtle nesting activity or sure? I just want to make sure we're dealing, we have two populations of wildlife that nest. And again, I open this up with, this could be a can of worms, no pun intended to the birds, but
I think this was intended for turtles. Brandon, do we have a separate section for birds?
We reference it in the forthcoming ordinance, but it's more of it ties in more with the window treatments and all. So I think this was more for the transit concerns with marine turtles, but and the reason for the expansion, the draw out to February 15th, was specifically for mechanical beach cleaning. That's where that was expanded out to include nesting season.
That's where it's relevant.
And I'm not pushing I'm just want to make sure that we have several problems we're solving. It's just not turtles, it's other wildlife. And
Why are we removing this from chapter 44, which is turtles? I mean, why wouldn't it be a cross-reference? I mean, we don't have the turtle rule in the turtle section?
That's a good point. It was brought forward. I understand what you're saying. I have no concerns with leaving it in the Land Development Code and just making this a reference to 44.3 if the committee is amenable to that. It would be the same content, just left in the Land Development Code. This was just how it was formatted, so I left it here. So
the other is having all things beach and beach, having
All things turtle and turtle.
But where are you suggesting this to go back to?
this would remain in Land Development Code Division 44. It's section 44.3, and we've changed. It would be relocated within that division, but this would remain. But it would be a reference to that section in the Land Development Code. I left it in here because it had been moved forward in an earlier draft of the ordinance, but I don't have any concerns with moving it back.
I kind of like it here because it's activity related or behavior related rather than development of land.
So maybe then
I'd rather have it here than in 44, and that way we're also not running afoul of Senate Bill 180 with being more restrictive or burdensome on land development regulations.
Okay.
But given Senate Bill 180, then maybe we shouldn't be striking it from 44. Or, the only difference between the two versions is sandcastles. I don't know if anybody's going to sue over their ability to make sandcastles unless they want to have an event.
I think these are really behavior activities. I don't see any development activity here.
Okay.
I didn't mean it to go that way when I brought this up. I think I agree, as we started this endeavor, that this was about behaviors in this part of the beach ordinance. I think city attorney is correct. This is behaviors. I would say keep it where it's at.
Understand.
By removing it from the turtle section.
Keeping it as proposed.
Right. Yep.
This is reiteration down in section 9520. The requirement for a trimming permit, even when it is not required by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And this is, I believe, the last item, item C and D, recreational activities, any organized recreational or entertainment activity, which should probably be here in the foreword, including events such as concerts, as well as skimboard surfing contests, which had been in there previously. They will be required to obtain the necessary special event permits and any other required permits through the city manager. Larger events, those contests, volleyball tournaments, concerts, and so on, those are large events. They always need a special event permit. They're not a recurring event where we give a blanket permit, such as for weddings on the beach. Those would be covered under a blanket.
So we are again deliberately removing all of this from the chapter that is specifically called dune preservation. We're removing it from chapter 25, which is where people go when they want to learn about the requirements for dunes. I mean, I know the dunes are at the beach, but then eliminate the entire chapter if you're going to take that philosophy. So my suggestion here is at least cross-reference them some way. I'm not saying how. I'm just saying that why would you remove all this from a chapter called dunes?
City attorney, having cross-references with the relocation of these sections between the Code of Ordinances and Land Development Code, that doesn't pose any challenge, does it?
You can just say C,
Okay.
C, comma, code section.
And we'll do that for the 44.3 as well.
And I just want to keep the
No
dunes
reason to not
protected.
do that.
Helps people that are looking through Muni Code to know, to navigate through the different sections of the code and know where to go to look for more.
Yeah. I felt that way about the turtles too, but I accept.
The forum presentation included a narrower scope of those who need to register when they're using the public beach. For anything other than the placement of chairs, tables, cabanas, and umbrellas, because we already have a registration process for that in 95.4. This would require those. This would apply to those events such as beach exercise excursions, photography sessions that include changing tents and so on. This is one of the items that the City Commission had directed us to look at. These are events that take place on the public beach. They are not part of a pre-registered private beach land approval. They would need to register with the city just as they would for a cabana, chair, table enterprise.
But this is doing exactly what I asked about before, and it's saying it would be legal then. A business operates and offers a service or event that involves the use of the public beach. And we're only having a problem if it's other than the placement of chairs, tables, cabanas, and umbrellas. So anyone will not occur under a business tax receipt or a special event permit. We're saying, go sprinkle the beach with chairs. As I read this, I mean, because why are we saying except? We're saying, we're not going to make these rules apply to the chairs, tables, cabana, and umbrella people.
So, City Attorney, one of the items we had in the consolidated beach ordinance that was left to address in the third ordinance, which we haven't brought forward, was a requirement that chairs and cabanas only be placed out when they are being rented. I believe that was specific to the private
property,
beach
though, I thought.
land.
Maybe the public too.
I believe you're correct. That was only on private beach land, but is there an enforceable standard that we could add that would allow us to regulate any kind of equipment or furniture on the beach if it doesn't have someone occupying it?
We can look into that a little bit and compare it with Senate Bill 180 and what we have and the issues that came before City Commission last time.
Well, what is the reason that we want to say other than the placement of chairs, tables, cabanas, umbrellas? Why did someone put that in there?
It says as regulated in 95.4, so you have to go to 95.4.
They have to register. They have a registration process that's outlined in 95.4. So those franchises that are setting up chairs, tables, cabanas, umbrellas only, they have to register through 95.4. That it's already
will have to
established.
register.
They will, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My question on that section is, and tell me how, and I might have missed it, is, since you said yoga, I'll go to yoga. A yoga class, they go onto somebody's private property on the beach and do a class. Anywhere in this, is it addressed that they need the permission of the land to go do that?
It's a good question.
And I'm a yoga fan. I just want to make sure people aren't just going out, placing a mat down on somebody's property, doing a class, someone gets hurt, there's a medical claim, Blue Cross Blue Shield subrogates to the property owner. The property owner didn't even know they were there. And yes, Blue Cross Blue Shield does subrogate medical claims, because I fell and hurt my shoulder, and they tried to subrogate to a ski hill, so I know they do this.
There is a standard earlier in the ordinance, I'm blanking out where it is currently, but it does, I believe that might just be the authorization from the upland
Okay.
owner. Yes, okay, so but this is specific to not, the cabanas, chairs, tables, umbrellas, so we could mirror this requirement in that.
Okay.
Should it-
You understand the problem
I
I'm
understand.
trying to bring up
Yes.
is
Go ahead.
to protect. And if the property owner is fine with the yoga class, let's go. But
Related to that, though, why sometimes do we refer to the upland property owner and other times we refer to the property owner? Why would an upland property owner who doesn't own the portion of the beach have rights that we're not even including for the property owner? We're only asking the upland property owner. Now, I think you mentioned in the last meeting, you're not sure how many of the, if we have any situations where the property owner and the upland property owner are different, although I could think of some where the beach is public, but, and I don't know why the upland property owner would have rights over that. So I'm confused why other than we were trying to avoid the wording of the owner of the land under the beach or the public land, we refer to upland.
That might have been the intent.
And if that was the intent, maybe we should go back and make that the consistent wording.
I think where upland comes into play, at least currently, is for cabana service, wet service areas. That is specific to upland, where there's an upland resort. So that would be an extension of their commercial facility. But for the rest of them, I think private beach land would work.
I mean, what I wanted to say was the person who's paying taxes for that particular portion of the beach, but nobody is. So that would not succeed right now.
Okay.
And that should cover the ordinance 2025-02. Those are the major changes.
Oh, in 9521, which was the next section, I know you were all clamoring, just debating what is a special event? Maybe it's 50 people or 25 people assembling. There was concerns about different kind of flash mobs. They didn't call them that, but, people just all showing up. So I think that, and we could talk to the law enforcement, but I think that a number of people involved in an event, might be what constitutes it being a special event. I mean, people singing happy birthday to their mother is not a special event.
Right.
But if they try to do any exclusion, where they set up all these tables and then they go, we're having our wedding here, get out of here. No, unless it's a special event, you have not reserved the right to block others from traversing. So something in that flavor may be helpful. Something that I wanted to say when I couldn't do it remotely, to try to help this problem. Thank you.
That is the rest of the ordinance.
So before the clerk left for a second, I was going to open it up.
Go ahead. Maybe we'll take a break.
Let's take a 5-minute break, and then when she comes back, I'll open it up.
I have a hard stop at like 11:30ish.
So we will be much
Ralph,
more efficient going through the
If I
segment.
leave at 11:30, will we still have a quorum?
State your name and your address for the record.
Hello again, my name is Christopher Hollins, and I live at 401 Gulf Way. I'd like to thank you guys all for trying to put this together because it's like you create a new nation. It's almost like an AI game. And you got some more issues coming up ahead of you. It's just a couple things. Drones. You know, you guys are gonna have a preserve area. And, you're gonna have a lot of drones, and you're gonna have robots within 5 years, delivering drinks, out there doing things and things. And I hate to say it, but you know, if you don't preserve your rights now, you lose them later on. Everybody else will override. And I think that's kind of, you have too much on your plate already. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Yep.
No other? Oh, please come up. As you know, state your name and address for the record.
Leslie Bryce, 303, oh wait, no, that's not where the, 6650 Sunset Way.
Thank you.
Two comments about some things you've already discussed. One was the plastic straws. As someone who picks up trash a lot along the beach, so many families, parents, serve their kids those little drink pouches. They all come with plastic straws. And any parent is going to say, my child needs this. And there's really no other really good way on a beach to serve all those little drink pouches. So be careful with that. I'm all in favor of doing the no plastic straws, but it needs to be practical as well. And the tent parts, the 10 by 10, and kind of like Chris was said, things are changing, and the size of coverage, shade structures has changed dramatically in the last 5 years. And trying to enforce a 10 by 10 is going to be incredibly difficult already, as well as just how close people have to be to each other on a really crowded weekend. It's going to make it very, very difficult for a sheriff to enforce who is together, who is not, how big is the area that they are encompassing. So thank you so much for all you guys are doing.
Yep. Thank you.
Leslie.
All right, so
Should we be handling issues that are raised, such as the drink pouch straw issue? Like, whether we
So
want to
Allendale
recommend?
Beach has an exemption for prepackaged drinks. If we wanted to include prepackaged drinks for children's prepackaged drinks.
But they should
Juice
save the
boxes.
wrapper.
it's a two-edged sword. You can do that, but then I also walk the beach with the trash bag when I go out. And what do you see? The little plastic wrapper and the plastic straws. So what are we trying to keep the beaches
And
clean?
there is prosecutorial discretion too by the deputies and the code enforcement.
Right. I'd rather leave
They
it to
see
that.
someone feeding a child responsibly with that package, they probably would make sure that what they bring in, they haul out.
Right. So next, I think we have a decision to make. I think we have three choices. I'll just say two main choices. One, we could ask the team to come back with the changes as presented, so we could approve to move forward, or we could, I think we all agreed on the changes that we were here, that we could authorize or vote to allow, take the changes and then move that ordinance to the next step of the process to get to the city commission.
So I'd be in favor of moving to approve the ordinance with the additions, revisions noted today and presented to the commission.
To move the forward. Vice Chair.
I don't care whether we see it again or not, because I would vote no with respect to saying that it represents my opinions and what we're actually going to be putting forward. So I don't care which way.
Okay.
I would move forward.
Yeah, I think we should move it forward to the committee.
Clerk, do we need to have a motion and vote this, or just?
A motion to recommend approval to the city commission with the changes discussed today.
Yep.
And then a second.
I move to recommend approval with the changes discussed today and move forward to the city commission.
Second?
I second it.
Roll call?
Member Looney,
Yes.
Member Rothenberger,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman,
No.
Chair Stevens.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so then we'll move on to the next is, it got renamed. Was it at the Marine Turtle and Coastal Wildlife Protections?
Significantly fewer changes to this ordinance. I will cover them as I go along. There was discussion about pathway lighting, specifically over and through the dunes. We do have one development coming up where the Department of Environmental Protection approved them for a path for a portion of the walkover. It is a paved path on the side property line. There is a walkover up to the top of the established dune from the storm, and then they will have a cut through out to the beach itself. So I had amended the definition of bollard lighting to include that temporary stake lighting, similar structures that are installed low to the ground and typically used to illuminate a pathway. And I'll cover the prohibition that this pertains to later on in the ordinance. Any concerns with that? That would include the temporary stick-in lighting, solar-powered lighting that can be used in pathways. Okay.
No Senate Bill 180 issues there?
No.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
All right, moving down to section 44.5. Small language change, but it is a significant alteration to the meaning. We had discussed at the prior meeting when the new lighting standards apply to a portion or a new building or a fixture within a building. The direction from the committee at the time had been that any replacement of any existing window and door would need to be with a turtle compliant or coastal wildlife compliant glass pane. So that would be any replacement of an existing window or door that is visible from the beach would need to have the tinting applied to it. They would not be eligible for the close the blinds or turn off the light standard of existing lighting.
What is the current standard in our current ordinance?
It's unclear. This would specifically state that, so currently it's defined as existing development, but it doesn't get into the details of what that includes. That's part of what I was intending to do with this ordinance, was define what construction triggers the new development requirements.
So, with Senate Bill 180, which is focused on land development, what you're doing is you're saying, instead of it only being on new development, we're also going to do it on repair, even non-significant repair. So I think that's a big expansion that would not be available until October 2027.
Well, I think in the statutes, the definition of construction specifically, the definition of development specifically excludes maintenance or repairs of structures. So if anything, I think that would be where we would have the authority to do that. Is that correct, City Attorney?
I'm confident we're okay with this one. We're just replacing windows. When you're not saying you can't have a window or not putting a new window, it's just placing a window that needs to be replaced, then there has to have the film.
Or the right glass. So what you're saying is that the Senate Bill 180 doesn't stop us from being involved in, it stops us from being more stringent on new development, not on repairs?
The definition of development does not include repairs. It excludes that from the definition
Wow.
of development.
And I thought the whole SB 180 was about making it easier to
If you're going
rebuild.
to tear down a hotel and rebuild a hotel, that's new development. But if you have an existing hotel and they're just changing one window, that's not development, that's just changing out a window.
So then what is the purpose of E, where we're raising the issue of substantial improvement? No, back up where you were.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sub-item A.
Why is substantial improvement raised as a discussion item? If we're saying any window or door or breach of the openings.
So, and potentially this is where it could be worded, this could be just a wording issue, but these are all items that would fall under remodel, repair, addition. These are all items that could fall under that scope. So one could be replacing part of the facade of a building and including new windows, or they could just be replacing windows or doors within part of a facade. The intention of this was really to cover any new addition, any remodel that introduces a new window or door, or simply the change out of windows or doors. That this is intended to be inclusive of all of those improvements.
Okay, thank you.
And later on in the section, it gives a little bit more detail to this. So I'll read this and I'll go through what the intent was. When a building is newly constructed, redeveloped, or substantially improved, so those buildings that are substantially improved that need to come into full compliance with the floodplain ordinance, that is typically also the zoning trigger for full compliance with all of the zoning codes. We have a handful of exceptions that would not apply here. The entire building that is visible from the beach needs to be made compliant with this ordinance. When the newly constructed, redeveloped, or substantially improved building is the primary structure on the property, the new construction standards would apply to the entire property. So if someone were redeveloping a beach bar, that beach bar would need to be fully compliant, but they would not necessarily need to make the entire lodging facility compliant. If the lodging facility were to be redeveloped, the beach bar would need to be made compliant in tandem with the lodging facility being redeveloped. That is what that is intended to cover. When an addition is constructed to a building and that addition itself is not a substantial improvement, the new construction standards of the division apply to the addition. So if there's an extension of a building, if there is a new, we've had a few projects recently for renovation of lodging where they're just constructing a vestibule at the back of the property. They're not adding a whole new building or extending the building. It would apply to that specific addition. It's not a substantial improvement, so the whole building would not need to be made compliant. For all other construction associated with existing buildings and structures, including remodels, renovations that modify or replace the exterior of the structure, as well as one-to-one changeouts of windows, doors, and exterior lighting fixtures, again, where the construction is not a substantial improvement to the building or structure, the new construction standards of this division apply to the altered parts of the building or the replaced fixtures, windows, or doors. So again, non-substantial, it applies to the work that they are doing on that building that is visible from the beach, but not to the entire structure. That is what has been drafted. Happy to receive committee feedback on that, but I believe that's what I took from the last meeting.
I commend you on how you documented and captured what was requested. I disagree, however, with what was requested. Because of, for instance, as the gentleman mentioned earlier, drones are available now and all these new technologies. I mean, I could see that a switch bot, which is just a little device you put on the curtain rod, will close the curtains at a certain time of day. And I would think that the requirements to have, I think the key is, and I think where our ordinance was written, you need to close your curtains. You don't need to close your curtains if you have tinted windows. So it's carving out an exception. And I think that should be our philosophy and continue. What this is doing is changing that and saying, you no longer can just agree to close your curtains and do it. We're going to force you to spend a lot of money to get turtle glass, which I hate because during the day when it's open, the room is dark. And people are going to want to stay at a hotel with dark rooms. So I think we should continue to give the flexibility and maybe use our teeth and say, we're going to, like other cities, we're going to make sure at sunset, your curtains are closed and you're going to start getting violations. And at random times during the night if we choose to. But I think us dictating, you must implement protection of the light escaping your rooms by changing your glass is necessary and maybe overreaching a little bit. So, but again, you implemented exactly what was asked of you. This is more a comment to the beach stewards, and they can just stay quiet and it'll continue as it is. But
Any
I feel like
response to?
No.
the feedback we got was when it's up to closing curtains, I mean, like you said, I don't know what that robot costs that closes curtains for hotels, but
Way less than the glass.
it's a lot of human error as far as to whether it actually happens, or, I mean, the glass is always gonna protect the light from coming onto the beach. I don't know.
I don't have a comment on that.
I just wanted to show some respect to Vice Chair. We had this conversation before and make sure we reconsidered.
That's
your
what was
comment.
offering new
And
information.
I think we should move forward.
Okay, thank you. And this is just clarifying the bollard lighting, the discussion that we had at the previous meeting. Any lighting shall be long wavelength on the walkovers, cut-throughs, other means of access. I do know that for the development that went through the FDEP permit, this was also specified for them, but it's just good practice. Later on down the line, they do not put, non-friendly light bulbs on their walkover. So. Right, getting into existing beachfront lighting, section 44.7. So I wanted to clarify what I was doing here. This is just providing more detail that for existing lighting that is visible from the beach that is not compliant with the lighting ordinance, one of the ways that the screening can occur is through the planting of vegetation between the light source and the beach to screen the light from the beach. One of the options I had allowed for was Florida native or Florida-friendly vegetation buffers. There are a lot of Florida-friendly plants that don't belong in the dunes. That's what this second sentence was intended to do. All dune plantings shall be those listed in the FDEP recommended manual or guide as an approved alternative. The Florida-friendly vegetation was intended for those developed properties that might have paved planter areas on their pool deck that aren't necessarily beyond the coastal construction control line. That I don't think I did a very effective job communicating that. So if the committee is amenable to it, they would still be able to plant Florida-friendly vegetation landward of the coastal construction control line, anything waterward, regardless of whether it is dunes or beach or current improved property, that would need to be Florida native. But if the committee would just like to see any screening used for this purpose being Florida native plants, I'm happy to amend it to that as well. So,
I have a comment, but I'm going to wait a turn. Dan, did you have any comment?
I would always rather go with the native as opposed to the friendly, definitely.
You can have non-natives that are Florida friendly, and then those Florida friendlies then can spread into the dunes. The second thing that concerned me of your conversation is the CCCL, where there is dunes behind the CCCL, and the way I heard you say it, you might not have meant it, is then they could do Florida friendly in behind the CCCL in a dune.
that's a good point. Yep.
And I would just get rid of non-natives, and there are plenty of natives, and that would be up to the job to solve the problem, as well as reduce the risk of it spreading and getting into the dunes where we don't want it.
Section 44.8, just deferring back to the definition for sunrise to sunset in Chapter 95. Section 44.9, this again is the fallback restriction during turtle nesting season. Should the City Commission not agree with prohibiting fireworks on and over the beach year-round, the recommendation would be that it is, they're prohibited on or over the beach during turtle nesting season.
I would, kind of my same can of worms for birds. is go to, if that doesn't hold, I would say use the nesting,
Bird nesting.
bird nesting date as well.
Understood. Is the committee in agreement with that? Okay, I'll get that changed.
Okay.
Along the same lines, I don't understand why flashlights, cell phone or flash or light or other lighting is prohibited outside of turtle nesting season. I mean, especially if you think about tourists, because, you know, if we live here, we might buy the light and use it all time of the year, although why would I use it if it's not turtle nesting season? But for a tourist who has to go buy it in January, that makes no sense at all. So in the thing where it says with flashlight, cell phone, flash or light, or other transient lighting, which actually is it's in 9519 as well as in chapter 44, or in this section. In both places, actually, we're requiring special flashlights of people in January. I don't think that's appropriate.
Did that come from the model ordinance?
I don't believe transient lighting was directly addressed through the model ordinance, so that the type of transient lighting that the vice chair is talking about, I don't believe that was out of that. But I do want to say that transient lighting, as prohibited in 44.9, this is during sea turtle nesting season, or at least it
Yeah,
should
that one
be.
is. But there's another spot, like I just was referring to in 9519, where we're making those, and I think they're also here somewhere in this section. That's because that's when I took the note. So somewhere in here also, it talks about needing the special flashlight. And I think a comment, out of respect, I remember a comment was, you know, people can just buy them. But as a resident, yeah, people could buy them. But as a tourist who's only here in non-type turtle season, I think that that's something that should be considered.
Understand.
And we should not require it outside of turtle season.
Any comments?
I think I asked a question when we talked about this, that it was currently flashlights were not allowed year-round on the beach. Is that true? Or,
I don't know.
because I thought I'd ask and it didn't, I was thinking you could not use them during turtle season, but I think someone said it's year-round, no flashlights on the beach, but I don't
Then we should fix that.
know. I'm not sure where that would be referenced, but.
In 9519, that is referring to the marine turtle nesting season. The following activities are prohibited at the beach during nighttime during the nesting season. So that if that's what you were referring to, it's
That wasn't, I actually wrote it at the very end. It was the last thing I wrote. So it was somewhere in this last section, but I didn't write the number, I'm sorry.
okay.
I'll let you know later if it's really true.
Thank you. All right, last item, the last section, 44.13. This is just a requirement on the city to provide our report that we submit annually to the City Commission and the Beach Stewardship Committee. We would place this on your agenda. And those are the major changes.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Okay. So the same options as we had with the other ordinance, we can have the recommended changes and come back to us, or approve this to move forward with the recommended changes and they don't have to come back. I'll start at this.
I would say move forward with the changes. It's fine.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Vice Chair?
Similar to my last comment, I'm not even sure that Chapter 44, which is the Land Development Code and turtle ordinances, fully is with, and dictating windows and so forth is fully within our scope. So I'm going to end up voting no on this moving forward, so it doesn't matter how you proceed.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the changes discussed to this ordinance and present to the City Commission.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
No.
Member Looney?
Yes.
Member Rothenberger?
Yes.
Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Brandon, thank you.
Very nice job.
Brandon,
Great job. Thank you, as always.
Wow.
The next item, let's see. I think we're at number 5 on the original agenda. Items for discussion. Brian, any issue from you?
I don't have anything else. I'll make the adjustments to the beach activity report next time.
City Attorney,
Nothing.
No, sir.
Vice Chair?
Nothing. I want us to be done at 11:30.
Nothing.
Clerk, anything?
No, thank you.
Then I say we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.